What's up? Incredible and loved and valued people. I am so thankful for your life. I'm so thankful that you have tuned into the Have You Heard podcast. And I'm MMA. Guys, this is going to be such a sweet conversation as one of my dearest friends, Haley Apon, is here to talk about long distance dating. And I think it's going to be super beneficial, super encouraging. So friends, grab your headphones and let's get into the word. So this is really, really special. Two things I want to say before sweet Haley is coming into this conversation. One is I am so grateful that we're having this topic discussed on the podcast. I've had actually a lot of y'all reach out and ask me questions about long distance dating, but it isn't my personal experience. And so I didn't feel like it was fitting for me to come on here and do a whole podcast by myself about it. And as y'all will soon hear, this was Haley's experience. And so I feel like this is just going to be so fitting and so sweet. And also, my husband Josh is best friends with Haley's husband Micah, and that's actually how I met Haley. So I just love how God connects people's lives, and this is like the biggest introduction because I just love Haley so much. Guys, welcome Haley Apon to the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Hey, sweet Emma. Yes, it's so crazy. I
Hey.
was literally thinking about that. Like, how we met was literally whenever I would come to see Micah, and I was like sleeping on your couch. Like, I didn't know any of you guys, like, whenever y'all were in college. So that's just so sweet. And the Lord is just so cool to like bring us together that way. But,
He really is. Like, if
mm,
y'all heard a couple of episodes recently where I had Millie Taylor on, and when we lived in college, it was me, Millie, Carson, Hannah Mae, and we all lived in one house. And when Haley would come up to Lynchburg to see Micah, she would stay with us, and we would always get so excited that Haley was coming, and we would be so sad when she left. And I feel like that kicks off, like, the question I actually was so excited to ask you, and that is, I would love for you to tell us about how you met Micah and just a little bit about like y'all's journey of meeting and then deciding to date, because I think it's a really cool story.
yeah, so our story is kind of crazy. And like, I just think back to it often, and I'm just like, that is just so wild, like how the Lord just worked it all out. Because it seems like, I don't know, it kind of just like seems to like a movie to me, because I'm like, wow, that really happened. But our story is a little unconventional. We met off of Instagram, and it was during like the very beginning of quarantine. And so he was like literally just on my explore page one day, and I never did this, but I just like saw a picture of him, and I like looked at his Instagram, and I really saw that he loved the Lord. And so like that just really, I don't know, it like tugged at my heart and just stood out to me. And so I followed him, and I just thought he was cool. Never really expected to ever meet him or like anything to come of it. But yeah, and he followed me back, and we would just like slide up on each other's stories like every once in a while. It was never flirty or anything like that. It was just kind of like, oh, like if you like that song, like you would like this song, or like we both really like to travel. And so if like one of us would go somewhere, we would just like ask where it was. But that was like really like it never like went anywhere. But
Yeah.
then one day, he like posted a story, and I was like, oh, if you like that song, you'd like this one. And then we just like from there like had talked every day since that point. And he was in school at Virginia at the time, or in Virginia, and I was in Memphis, where I was born and raised, and also going to school. And so we were about 10 hours away from each other. And I that was probably like in April, I think, of 2020. And then it was around June, and we had like talked to each other every day, and just kind of was like we were just friends. Like it wasn't like we were just trying to get to know each other. So I was visiting a friend in Knoxville, and he was in Greenville at the time. This was in June at the time, for like an internship, and we kind of like realized that that would be like the closest we probably like physically be.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of like, I think I was like, hey, like, I'm gonna be in Knoxville, and I know you're in South Carolina, and like if you would want to like meet up or something, like somehow, like cool, but if not, then like that's okay too. Like if it doesn't work out, then it's okay. And
Wow, I
we
feel like that's bold. That's really
I know I
sweet.
never really did stuff like this, but I really think we'll get to this later. But I don't know, the Lord just really Micah just really stood out to me. And so like it
Yeah,
wasn't super it just like kind of felt like natural. Like it didn't feel like forced
I
or
love
anything like
that.
that. And so we ended up both like we found the halfway point and like we both drove to Waynesville, North Carolina, and we both drove an hour and a half away, never meeting each other. We had honestly, Emma, we had never even FaceTimed. And
Haley.
so it's like kind of like crazy. My friends were like, Haley, you're driving to the mountains. Like, are you gonna be okay? So it's just kind of funny, but that's like also kind of my personality, just kind of like, let's just see what happens. But
Mhm.
so we just like met up and we literally just like it was like we already knew each other. Like it was never awkward
Oh,
ever. Yeah, it was just really, really cool. And so from there, the months following, we ended up seeing each other every month in a new city up until October when he came to Memphis. And that's when we started dating. And then we ended up, so as like we went on and the months went on and we were dating. We were pretty seriously dating just because we were at the point in our lives where we just kind of like we wanted to be on the path to like take dating seriously and like get married
mhm.
and like find our person. And so we had that like talk pretty early on in the beginning, but as the months went by, and we started to like realize like, hey, we really like each other and we like see the potential of like marrying each other, but we'd also never lived in the same city together and we wanted to be wise about it. And so before we would get engaged, we just really wanted to see what it was like to live in the same city. And so
Yeah.
I ended up it just worked out for me to I moved to Atlanta for the summer and I lived with his mom
Oh, I
and he
remember
lived
that.
yeah, and he lived with his brother, and so it was about 2 months. This was like the next summer. It was about 2 months where we just were living in the same city and like doing day to day together, and it just kept getting like better and better, and just confirmed what the Lord was doing. And we ended up getting engaged that July, and so I think we had been dating for like 9 or 10 months, and then that following November we got married. And so now we've just passed our 1 year last November, and it's been a couple months since then. But yeah, that's our
Haley.
story.
Haley. Okay, one, you are an incredible storyteller. And
Thanks,
two,
Emma.
I am so in love with y'all's story. I have to ask you, like, what were you feeling? Because did you drive that hour and a half to see him
Yeah,
were you by
it's kind of
yourself?
funny. I was by myself, and me and Micah, we like had talked about this like way after. We were
Yeah.
feeling two completely different things. Like my
Really?
windows were rolled down. Yeah, all of my windows were rolled down. My music was up, and I was just like, "This is so cool! Like this is gonna be great." And Michael, on the whole way, was thinking like, "What if she catfishes me? Like, what if this isn't even like a real girl?" And he's like, "I haven't even FaceTimed her ever. Like, what am I doing?" And so it's just kind of funny.
That is so funny. That is so true though. As I've like gotten to know you as a friend, I've learned that about you and I admire that so much in you. Just your spontaneity, your willingness to try new things, your willingness to adapt and be flexible. And I'm there's so many things I could say, but it just really inspires me how this is this may be out of my comfort zone. This may be something new. I don't know all the answers of what it holds, but I have peace and I see this being a good thing. And so I'm going to go
Mhm.
try it. And I think that courage in you is just very admirable. And I also, okay, I have to ask you this too. So, whenever y'all were in this stage of y'all were intentionally like spending time with each other, like and talking with each other, but you hadn't started dating yet, was there ever a point where you realized, okay, it is very likely that our entire relationship until if we get married is going to be long distance? Did that scare you at all? And if it did, like, how did you work through that? And we're talking about how you have more of a spirit of like, yeah, let's try it. Like, let's do this. So maybe I'm also asking on like behalf of Micah. Like, was Micah scared, and how did y'all work through that fear together?
Yeah. first off, I want to say thank you. You're such a great encourager, Emma, and your just words are
You're
so sweet.
welcome.
So thank you for that. But it's kind of funny because both of us, like, we always said we would never do long distance. And then, like, that was literally our story.
Really?
Yeah, because, like, growing up, I think he kind of took like his approach to dating was a little bit different than mine. Like he never brought people home really in like unless it was like serious. And I like before we were even dating, I wanted like those people to be around my family just to see how that was like because that was really important to me. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we always said we would never do long distance. And on my part, that was out of like my family, like my house growing up was always the house of like where everybody would hang out or my parents would be like hey like we're cooking burgers tonight or like we're ordering pizza and like it wouldn't even really be like a question if like I could like have my friend come over or like two friends. It was just kind of like yeah like of course it, like they can come over. Like it wasn't like ever like a no. Like my parents were just so like hospitable in that way and I really admired them in that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so like looking on in the light of like long distance, it scared me because like on a random Thursday night my parents were grilling out, I couldn't just say like from 10 hours away, like, hey, can you come over for dinner tonight, like with my family?
That's
And so I think,
different.
yeah, I think that really scared me just because I like that wasn't even possible ever. Like it had to be planned whenever they would be coming to town. Like it wasn't really like spontaneous or just out of the blue or whatever. Um, yeah, it also I think scared Micah too, just because like whenever we were dating, I don't think we ever really knew people that dated long distance and it was like
Mm-hmm.
really successful. Like we didn't really have people to like look up to. And so, and also like Micah is kind of the person like before he does anything, he wants to be like sure of it, which is a really good
Yeah.
quality. But in like this light, I think it really just like maybe put in some fear in him. Whereas like I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
like let's try it out and like see what happens. He's kind of like, I don't know how this is gonna go, and that scares me. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I think I resonate with that in the sense of sometimes I can be afraid to say yes to something or be have an all in commitment to something because I can get scared of like, oh no, but like what if this isn't where I'm supposed to go? Or what if like X, Y, and Z happen and we were actually supposed to go this way? And so sometimes the
Mhm.
fear of messing up can keep me from taking a step at all. So I totally
Mhm.
get that. And all of those fears are so legitimate. And the fact that y'all said, both of y'all said, I'm not doing long distance. So
Yeah.
when you came to the place of like, okay, I think dating is our next step, like, how did you face that fear? How did you say, yeah, let's do it anyway, even though I'm afraid?
Whenever we first were talking, Micah, like, he was just different to me. Like, he was just like different than anybody I dated before. And I
Mm-hmm.
would really intentionally like pray about it because of this fear, I was scared of like, what if I never get to see him? Or like, what if it's months before I get to see him? Like, that's gonna make me really sad. And like, all of my friends, like, they can go out with their boyfriends every Saturday night on a date night, but like, what if I have to wait months for that? And so, really early on, I remember having just like a conversation with the Lord, a like continuous conversation of like, okay, God, if this is who you have for me, then like I want you to show me in the boldest ways. And I
Mm-hmm.
want you to show me in the details. And I'm going to trust you in this. And I'm going to be expectant of it too, if this is what you have for me. And I think that also just really transformed my faith because I looked, instead of letting fear take over, I looked at trusting God as an adventure. And it just
Mm-hmm.
completely just changed my perspective. And it just kind of took away that fear because like literally like the Lord has you and he's never going to do something to you to like out of spite or to hurt you like intentionally like ever. And so just like keeping that in the back of my mind just like okay, the Lord has me if this works or if it doesn't work. Like that's okay because I'm going to if it even doesn't work then I'll learn something from this and the Lord has me and it's going
That's
to be
good,
okay.
Haley.
So I think that just like little like pocket of truth was just with me the entire time. And so that's kind of just
Mm-hmm.
like what gave me peace because I just knew no matter what it was going to be okay. But also like it's okay to try new things too. And like you shouldn't be scared of that because it's like literally like the creator of like the universe is with you and like I think we put him in a box a lot
Yeah.
too. and we kind of just like confide him and like, oh, I don't know if that's like, is this too big to ask him? Or like, I've
Hmm.
heard like that, like God do this for other people, but like that would never happen for me, you know? And so I just
Yeah.
kind of like, I had that conversation with one of my sweet friends, Amy, one time, and she just referred to it as big asks. Like the Lord wants
Hmm.
your big asks. And so I really just like took that whenever we were having, it was before me and Micah were dating. I think we were just talking about all this, and I was probably talking to her about my fear. And she was just like, literally, Haley, like the Lord of the universe has you. Like, if he literally made everything, like, why would you not trust him in this? You know, because like you never know
Yeah.
what he could do, and he loves surprising us. So,
He really does. Wow, Haley,
mm-hmm,
this is really good. I was reading in Psalm 34 this morning, and in Psalm 34, David prays, "Those who trust in the Lord, they lack no good thing." And I just was thinking about that so much as you were sharing that because it's so true. Like, yeah, this may not be what I thought my journey would look like, but God, I'm trusting you. And like what you said, if it works out, God, you're still good and you're withholding no good thing from me. And if it doesn't work out, or if it does work out, then God, you're good. And like, I lack no good thing in you. Like, it's a good thing because as I walk with you and trust you, you're leading me in good things. So,
mm-hmm,
I think that perspective does keep us in a space of being willing to take godly risks and go on that adventure with God
mm-hmm.
and not, like you said, putting him in a box thinking that, oh, God may have done this for other people, but he won't do it for me, or this was never a part of my 5-year plan, so therefore I'm not going to take the risk to step into it because I never saw myself here. But I think we would live a lot more of a fun life if we lived a life trusting the Lord, being willing to go where he was leading, even if it went against what we thought our life was going to look like.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always like so much better than what you think like your life is going to be like whenever you trust the Lord. Like it's always
Yeah,
better.
something that I love about this is that we're talking about how y'all were growing in your walk with the Lord. Y'all were learning how to face your fears, yet still press forward anyway as you trusted the Lord. And there's so much in that to learn from. And then also in this story, in this conversation, something I would love for the listeners to take away is some practical things you and Micah did. Because, like we're saying, the majority of y'all's relationship wasn't physically together in the same city. And so, what were things that y'all did to help each other, like learn about each other, grow in relationship with each other, even though you were miles apart?
Yeah, so one fun thing that we did was we would send letters to each other. And it just like made the other person feel closer. Even though like obviously like we weren't like super close, like we were 10 hours away from each other. Like the anticipation and just like the giddiness and excitement of going to the letter every day and just like seeing a letter, like that just brought, oh, that always just brought me so much joy. And
Yeah,
it was just like, even though he wasn't like actually close, like it was like just something that I could tangibly hold on to of his. And so that was something that was really fun, that we really, or that we did to keep up with each other. And another thing that we did was we always tried to, our thing was we were both in college and we both had jobs. And so even though it wasn't, we didn't know if it was always possible, but we set to like try to see each other once a month. And it ended up always happening, which was another thing that like going back to like what grew my faith was I prayed that it just like I was like, okay, God, like if this is who you have for me, then I'm expectant of you to like work. But I also like ask that if this is who you have for me, then like I ask to see them way more than or asked to see Micah way more than I ever thought I was going to. Because like that
I
was
was
always a fear
hoping
of
you would
mine.
share this story. This
Yeah,
is good.
I forgot about that. But yeah, that was just always like, okay, God, I was just like putting my faith in that and trust in that. But it was just the Lord, like I literally we ended up seeing each other every month, despite living 10 hours away from each other, despite both being in college full time, both having jobs. I think Micah might even have had two jobs. I don't remember. But it's just like literally like the Lord was just so sweet in that way. But whenever we were physically with each other, we always tried to um, set the next time we were going to see each other. Just because
Mm,
it gave us something to hold on to, and it
yeah.
made the weeks that like we would leading up to the next time like feel shorter. But
Mm-hmm.
um
You could look forward to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it made the days go by faster just because it's like, okay, like it's only 2 weeks away, and then it would get to like 5 days, and it was just, I don't know, it made it just go by so much faster, and it was so fun to like look forward to. And also, another thing we would do, we would just like kind of randomly Venmo each other, just like $5 to go get coffee or to go get, I really like flowers. And so he would like Venmo me like $5 or $10 to like go get some flowers today. And like just like that, it just like whenever
That's so
like
sweet.
yeah, it just like it really just like made them feel so or him feel so much closer. And that, I don't know, that
Mm-hmm.
was just another thing. But we also read a book called A Love Letter Life by Audrey and Jeremy Roloff.
Oh,
That's
I've
probably
heard of
like my
that book.
favorite book. It's probably my favorite book
Yeah.
ever. Like it's just they did long distance for 3 years. They live in Oregon, but they did long distance for 3 years. And she was in Oregon and he was in California. And they're now married with 3 kids. And it's just like so like the perspective in it is great because like how I said before, like we didn't really have anybody to like look up to or like seek advice from really about like how to go about and navigate long distance. But they for each chapter they're just so like genuine and real about like literally everything, and
Hmm.
for each chapter it would give both perspectives. So like half of the chapter was written in how she was talking about something or viewing something or her side, and the next chapter or the rest of the chapter would be his take on it. And so that was really cool just because like I could see like I resided a lot with how Audrey um just like her perspective things because she was the girl.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like without even talking to Micah about some things, like I could already kind of like see like how the guy's like mind was because of like reading it. So Micah
That's
enjoyed that
helpful.
book. Yeah, it really was. And it Micah loved the book just as much as I did. We both read it together. And so it was just practical too, like how went about long distance and just everything that they went through. But yeah, those are some
I
things that
love
really
that.
helped us.
Something I love about what you just shared is that y'all didn't send turtle doves with a love note to each other's dorm room every month, or like send an airplane to go into the sky and write out I love you in the clouds, which epic like over the top things are so special and so fun, and they're just things that you cherish and remember. But I also think sometimes we very easily overlook the things that seem so simple because we think they may be insignificant and they won't matter that much. But in reality, the things that seem so simple actually go so far. Like, I love that the things you shared are so doable. It's like $5 Venmo. It's like, let's read a book together. I'm going to write on a piece of paper and send it to you, a letter to you in the mail. I'm going to FaceTime you. Hey, let's schedule when we can see each other next. Like, they're not like these grand mountaintop things that y'all did, but they made for like epic growth and just such closeness between you guys, and it communicated so much love to the both of you. And so that's something I really hope that the listeners take away from that, is that like sometimes it really is saying, hey, I love you, or hey, you look beautiful today, or hey, go and get some flowers, here's $10 to go buy yourself some flowers, or hey, I'm thinking about you today, or I can't wait to see you next month, I marked it on my calendar, and every day I count it down, I'm like, I get extra excited. Like, these things we may think, oh, that may sound weird, or that won't mean a lot because it's so simple, actually, like I said, go so far. So I appreciate you sharing just the simple things that y'all did, because they actually do go a really long way.
Yeah, and especially in
Yeah.
long distance too, like you can't take like the single things for granted just because
Mm-hmm.
like your experience is just so unique and different than everybody else. It really makes you just cherish the simple things.
And it sets you up for marriage. I strongly believe like you can't go through dating without intentionality and without like communicating love to the other person, and then expect yourself to step into marriage and say, I'm going to be the most intentional, loving, like expressive person to them yet I haven't been that person at all leading up to this
Mm-hmm.
point. Like how it's like going back to just dating with intention. It's like how I'm dating you is setting up for like how I'm going to treat you like later. And so just the fact that y'all established that rhythm of intentionality when y'all were apart, how much more has that shown up now that y'all are together? That's just really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing that I wanted to touch on was when you're talking about communication, because that was also like another big thing for us that just helped us. Because, like, whenever you're so far away from each other, I think the enemy really tries to, or at least for me, I don't know for sure if this like happened with Micah, but for me, like, he would just try to make my mind, like, get in my mind. And so
Mm-hmm.
for communication, like, not like in a sense of like, oh, I need to know what you're doing at 9 a.m. and at like 5 p.m. Like, it's not like that, but just like something that really helped us too was like Micah, like, he was really involved in school and loved hanging out with his friends and doing intramurals and everything. And so one thing that really helped us was we would just try to like tell each other, like Micah would say, like, hey, I'm going to dinner and then I have an intramurals game after that, and then I'm gonna go hang out with Josh for the rest of the night. So like just like knowing like kind of just like letting each other in on our plans throughout the day, like not in a like controlling sense at all, but just kind of like affirm to me and
Mm-hmm.
just like let me know like okay, he's not on his phone not because he doesn't like me anymore. Like it's because like he's like living his life, and like that's what I want him to do. And so that was just like
Yeah.
another thing that really helped us and that I encourage just people that are in long distance right now is just like kind of just like let each other in on your days, and it's okay. Like we weren't texting all day every day. Like we would talk to each other every day, but it wasn't like we were just sitting on our phones because that's not healthy.
Right.
And yeah, and so that was just one thing that was super, super helpful for us.
I love that. I love that you also said I would love to encourage those who are in long distance because I actually really wanted to ask you, those who are listening who are in long distance or will be, like what piece of advice would you love for them to take away from this conversation, if anything?
Yeah. So I think a big one would be to, like what I did, was just try to see as trusting the Lord as an adventure, because it
Mm,
really just like what I just like said before, like I think the enemy will really try to insert fear in any way that he can, instill your joy, just because it's just such a unique experience. And it's
mm-hmm.
not ideal, really, in all honesty. Like, it's not ideal to live away, like 10 hours away or hours away from the person that you like or love. But yeah, just trying to like consciously be always trusting the Lord. And like if a thought of fear comes in, just like giving that to the Lord and surrendering it to the Lord. That was super helpful for us. But another thing would be to also like have fun, like take advantage of
Oh,
like the long distance, and like what we did, like we would in the very beginning, like we literally saw each other. I think it was like 5 or 6 different cities, like every time that we met up. And it's like that's just such a like it just adds so much more fun to like the whole experience. And so yeah, that's just one thing that I would encourage is just to take advantage of that and like try something new, find like what's in the middle of you two, or just a new city that's around that you guys have never been to, and just taking advantage of that. But another one I think would be to also consciously be pursuing the Lord more than each other, which can be so
that's
hard
good,
because you
Haley.
thanks just because like it's so hard and you love that person so so much. But I promise you, like by consciously striving after the Lord more than you're pursuing each other, like it's not going to be the best that it can be if you're pursuing each other more than you're pursuing God. And so I would just encourage the listeners and whoever's in a long distance relationship just to be always consciously um, setting your time with the Lord just more important than the time with your significant other. Yeah, it just prevents so much hurt and fear, and just the list could go on and on, but it's just super
Mm-hmm.
beneficial. And so I just encourage you in that.
Wow, Haley, like literally trust in the Lord, have fun, and pursue God more than you pursue each other because it'll allow you to pursue each other in the best way possible. Those are
Hmm.
like three golden nuggets of wisdom. And I love how you talked about the enemy having a strategy always to rob our joy and our peace. And it made me think about my own personal life and how I've walked through one season in particular where I was getting in my head about something and was letting the enemy rob my joy. And then by the end of that season, I finally got over it, but I wasn't implementing that mental fortitude. I wasn't applying the truth. I wasn't like, I could tell you what the truth was, but actually resting in it, I had a disconnect there. So in the next season of my life, it was a totally different thing the enemy was using, but my joy was still being robbed. And so it's so true that like if it's fear of stepping into long distance dating, that the enemy's going to use you to keep from experiencing joy right now, then next season it's going to be something else. Like he's continually going to want to steal your joy, and he's going to use whatever he can to keep you from walking in the joy of the Lord that is so strong. And I love that you're showing us like what we can use to combat it, and it's an authoritative, victorious combat, and that is trust in the Lord. Like the Lord says that those who trust in me, I will keep in perfect peace. Those who trust in me, I will give the fullness of joy. Like there is such a sweetness of how we get to walk in step with his spirit as we trust in him. Like they really do go hand in hand. So I love that you talked about that. And also I love that you talked about the importance of pursuing the Lord, because it is so true that our relationship with the Lord is going to set the tone of how our relationships with other people, and in this case our significant other, is going to look. It's going to impact how we communicate. It's going to impact how we love well. It's going to impact like every single aspect of that relationship. And so I really appreciate these pieces of advice you're giving, because they're very easily understood, but they're also like so foundational, and I believe that they will allow the trajectory of a relationship, long distance or not, to be in a really good direction. So Haley,
Hmm.
thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Just in simple, just the Lord has just been so, so sweet to us. And so I would love to just help, just give like a little insight of like what helped me and Micah to anybody that's in long distance,
Yeah, and
just to
like you
make it a
said,
little easier.
aren't like tons of books on long distance dating, and so that was also one of my goals for this podcast, is that Haley could come on here and share her love for God and her story and the wisdom that she's learned along the way to help you guys as you're walking about it, so that you can walk about it well. Guys, we love y'all so much, and I hope that the rest of your week is amazing. I hope you're refreshed by this conversation, and that it leads you just to want to know God more and pursue him, and that it impacts your relationships in the best way. And Haley, thank you times a billion gazillion for being on the Have You Heard podcast. I love you
Of
so
course,
much.
Emma. I was so honored to be on it. Yes, this was so much fun. I love you so
Yeah.
much too.
Oh, bye guys. We love y'all.